let's get into the buckets for the Genesis Invitational. If you're following along with me, or if you want to follow along with me, I should say, there is a cheat sheet, a link to that cheat sheet in the description below. Go click on that link if you want to follow along with me. I'm butchering this right now. It'll bring you to the cheat sheet, file menu, go down to make a copy. That way you can follow along with me. It'll allow you to put the filters on here like I'm about to do right now. I'm going to put filters on here. We're going to talk about each bucket, each stat, I should say, and talk about my favorite golfers in each of those buckets. I'm going to hide some of this fluff so you don't get confused. And basically what we're going to do is go through each of the bucket, or each of the stats, each of the buckets within those stats, and the projections that go along with it to give you an idea of where to start building your lineups from. So again, just to remind you, I said this kind of in the beginning of the video, this is to help you diversify your lineups. Bucket system analyzes the top 10 of every single year that this tournament's been played. And it determines, based off of success rates of golfers in these buckets, as well as the quality of golfer in the field within those buckets, a projection. So I know that might have been hard to follow. I'm basically telling you how many golfers to select from each of these buckets, and we're going to go through each one of these buckets. It's up to you to choose the right golfers, because I can't give you that. I can just give you the guidelines. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to, again, go through each of these buckets, tell you how many golfers you want to select from these buckets, and it's up to you to basically either record the golfers that I talk about, or find your anchors somehow, some way. Anyways, I don't want to, this is really getting nuanced and really getting into the nitty gritty to narrow down. Like, just think of us. We're trying to aim to hit the target, right? We have to look very narrow in order to figure out which plays to put together, or what type of plays to put together to hit the optimal lineup. So to me, it's all about aiming small to hit small. We don't hit the optimal, maybe we hit the GPP winning lineup instead. That's the whole premise behind the bucket system. So if you normally get confused about this, or you're coming to this video for the first time, that's what this whole next part is all about. Just trying to narrow down our target, narrow down our aim to hit our target, essentially. So as a reminder, projections, this max projection column, we always round up. I want to give you the raw number so you see it. 2.4 rounds up to 3. 1.4, so this minimum projection, we always round down. 1.4 goes to 0. Or I'm sorry, 1.4 goes down to 1. Ugh, my bad. So this projection for the last year 1 bucket would be 1 to 3. So again, just to repeat that, when we're looking for last year 1, or when we're looking for golfers, we kind of want to start maybe looking at our last year 1 bucket, because we already know we want at least one of them, but a max of 3. I do have another projection over here. This includes the sweet spot ranks, which kind of gives it a more overall feel. So these projections usually are a bit more conservative. If for whatever reason I see that this is either lower or higher than this one, I will alter my projections. And if we ever come across that, you'll know. I'll let you know. I can't see anything really on the screen right now that would justify me jumping into it, but once we get there, I'll let you know. As I see it, now let's start with the last year buckets. Last year 1, we want somewhere between 1 to 3. So if you're following along with me on the cheat sheet, you go to that dream sheet portion of it, you put that filter on, and we filter out everyone from this last year bucket except for last year 1s. So we want somewhere between, or I shouldn't even say we want, somewhere between 1 to 3. It's a projection of what's going to be inside the top 10. So 1 to 3 golfers from this bucket will be inside the top 10. Again, it's usually 34 to 36%, or geez, not even percent. 34 buckets out of 36 are usually correct any given week. I imagine this bucket's going to be successful just depending on just looking at all the golfers in here. So to me, this is a really good bucket to start with when building your lineups. Select somewhere between 1 to 3. Now we see they're all high priced golfers. You probably can't put 3 golfers in your lineup from this bucket. That's the other thing you have to consider. But I bet you could put 2, and if not, 1. Personally for me, now these are golfers who topped 20 last year. I'm looking at Justin Thomas. I said it earlier in the video when it came to the golf course information. I think this course benefits someone like him, who's a bit more creative, who likes to shape shots. I like him a lot. But don't get me wrong, I like Rory a lot. I like Scotty a lot. I like Xander a lot. Xander was kind of where my first look went to until I kind of started thinking about it. I'm like, I kind of like Justin Thomas a little bit more. But yeah, like, you guys can choose just about anyone 8K and above, which obviously you see basically every golfer except for Sepp Straka and Ches Reavie. So I'm not really looking at these 2 golfers. I'm more looking at the rest of these up here, and I'm probably anchoring around 2 of these guys because it's going to be easy. In my opinion, it will be easy. No one is that expensive. So like if you want to do like a Rory Max Homa lineup, I mean, you're starting out with what? $20,000. You have basically $29,800 left to spend on the next 4 golfers. It looks tight when you first start this way, but you incorporate a 6K golfer into your lineups and then it balances out and it's easier to build with. So I don't mind starting something like that. I'm looking at least grabbing 2 guys from here. Let's go to the next one. Last year 2s. Again, 1 to 3 is what I'm projecting to be inside the top 10. You can select anywhere between 1 to 3 golfers. Let's take a look who those are. What do you know? The top price guy, Jon Rahm, is here, followed by Tony Finau. I really like Tony Finau here. Sung J M, Patrick Cantlay. A lot of good golfers, 8K and above. I mean, we have 7 of them. And then we have a lot of good fill-ins. So if we started with the bucket before, and we come here and we're like, man, I kind of want to add someone from here. I imagine if you start with a 10 and a 9K over there, you can come here and grab one of these 7 or 6s. However, maybe you start with 1, 10 or 9 over there, and then you grab a 10 or 9 over here, or even an 8. Because that's obviously a possibility. I don't really have a lean one way or the other. I'm going to let the optimizer do its work tomorrow when I build lineups on stream. And then also when I build my own lineups, I'm going to let it kind of figure out who it likes. I mean, I'm really liking Tony Finau from this group. So I actually don't mind starting with like Justin Thomas from the other one, because remember our projection was 1 to 3. So I'm grabbing 1 from there, coming over here and grabbing Tony Finau, because this is also a projection of 1 to 3. I like kind of that start a lot. JT, Tony Finau. I like it a lot. But entirely up to you guys. So that's your last year bucket 2. Last year bucket 3, we want somewhere between 0 to 1. Now, when it's 1 point between each other, I always widen that margin by 2. I want a 2-point buffer for all my projections. So although this is 0 to 1, it will end up being 0 to 2. So we can't go the opposite way. I would rather bring the minimum down to increase that buffer, but it's already at 0. So that means we got to punch this one up a little bit to make it 2. And like we take in the sweet spot ranks, it's pretty darn close of being over 1, which means we round up to 2. So I don't mind. Ultimately, I don't mind. So 0 to 2 out of this bucket. Again, their projections of being inside the top 10. Kind of failed to say that every once in a while. But there's one golfer that there's a couple golfers actually. The first one, obviously, I gravitated to was Ricky Fowler. I think he's playing really good golf, and I think this is a golf course that's really good for him. So if you wanted to select someone from this bucket, not terrible. Now, remember, the projection is 0 to 2. Could there be a third golfer from here to be inside the top 10? Sure. But I'd rather be more conservative and just select 1 or 2 and just move on. Because I'm fine with that. Just select 1 or 2 and move on. These guys at the higher 7K range, a little bit harder to do if I were to start, like, say, a JT Finau lineup and then come to this bucket and try to grab one guy from here. This isn't a bucket I'm going to really try to grab someone from. I'll let the optimizer kind of be like, hey, we've got this much money left. Let's grab someone from this bucket and just leave it at that. So I don't have a lean one way or the other. Decent golfers from here. But yeah, nothing that I feel super confident with. Going to the next bucket, 0 to 1 last year 4s. Again, we want that 2-point buffer. One thing I forgot to mention are the frequency rates. Hopefully you guys have been paying attention to that. The first 2 buckets, every single year we've seen at least one golfer inside the top 10. That's what this frequency rate means. And you can see the minimums, which is the bare minimum that we've seen every single year. 1 ends up being the number for top 10s from these buckets. Also, if you look at the optimal lineup analysis here, 1 from each of those buckets have also been in the optimal lineup every single year. So that's something to take into consideration. These other 2 buckets that we're kind of talking about, not so much. Not super successful. So take that into consideration as well. And again, we're on last year 4, so 0 to 2 is our projection to be inside the top 10. And it falls off after Siwoo Kim pretty hard, which, hey, if you like 1 or 2 of these guys, by all means, go ahead and select them. I see names that I don't mind playing here. Up to you guys, though. I'm going to move on. Last year 5s. These are guys who missed the cut last year. A lot of times, this is a bucket you want to select from, and it's pretty darn close to having a 100% frequency rate of being inside the top 10. It also has a pretty high frequency rate, and by inside the top 10, I mean at least 1 golfer being inside the top 10. Optimal lineup has almost had every year having a guy from that bucket inside the optimal lineup as well. All but 1 year. So, pretty interesting bucket here. Guys who missed the cut, don't be afraid of that. So this is from last year. Who missed the cut last year? We want somewhere between 0 to 2, and it's almost 100% frequency rate. So let's take a look at those guys. Starts with Sam Burns, which my boy Shot Like Harden's going to like quite a bit. Now, I include withdraws in this bucket, so you can see Wyndham Clark withdrew last year. That's what the 90-point, that's what 90 represents to me, is a missed cut. Really like Seamus Power. I'm not sure if this course really sets up for him. Really, any of these guys in the 7K range, I like quite a bit. Like Brendan Steele. This is a course that I think he has done well at. Yeah, his course history is pretty decent. I don't mind someone like Brendan Steele. Or even Patrick Rogers, who did pretty well last week. He was in the optimal lineup last week. So don't mind, having either of these guys in the low 7K range. I think this is a good bucket that helps you kind of build lineups. I mean, Shot Like Harden, you're going to want this guy, obviously, which, hey, more power to you. But I really like the glue that kind of puts together lineups down here a little bit more. And then last year's 6s are golfers who just haven't played this tournament last year. Now, this includes rookies who've never played this tournament ever. It includes veterans who've never played this tournament dating back to 2013, because that's where my data goes back to, is 2013. And it also could include veterans that have played this tournament every single year of their, existence on tour, except for last year. So that's golfers in this bucket. And I forgot to tell you what the projection is. 1 to 3. And that's pretty common with also the conservative projection. Optimal lineup doesn't have it in there every single year. 60% frequency rate there, but 100% frequency rate of getting someone inside the top 10, which kind of tells me probably high price guys do this. And we don't really have any high price guys in that bucket this week. There are some interesting names, though, like Tom Kim, Jason Day, Matt Fitzpatrick, Tyrrell Hatton, Justin Rose, even Taylor Montgomery. Probably steering clear from Maverick. Oh, I thought I saw Maverick McNeely's name. Never mind. Some interesting names here. I like a lot of these names down here as well. I'm not going to shy away from like S.H. Kim, Nick Hardy, Thomas Dietrich, Kurt Kitayama. I like players from this bucket quite a bit. So 1 to 3 was the projection. I could see that happening pretty easy. And in fact, I could see this bucket actually producing like 4 or 5. So it could break the projections, or it could break the bucket, could fail the bucket, I should say. That's fine. I'm still going to select up to 3 and not go more. and not go less than 1. I'll keep it right between 1 to 3. I like this bucket. I like a lot of the golfers that I'm seeing right now. So 1 to 3 is my projection, and I actually stand by that by how many golfers you should select from there. Going to the next bucket, which is last week. So these are golfers who either played last week or didn't. Those that didn't are in the last week 6 bucket. Those that did are separated between the 5 buckets here at the top. First one being guys who topped 20 last week. Now, at this event, we've seen a 100% frequency rate of actually having one guy from this bucket finish inside the top 10, which means if you top 20 last week, you have a pretty good shot at top 10ing this week. 100% frequency rate, only a 60% frequency rate of being in the optimal lineup. And we're projecting 1 to 3. So let's take a look. And I'm assuming if we have a 100% frequency rate of one guy being inside the top 10 every single year, it's probably a high price guy that just didn't finish inside the top 5 to ensure an optimal lineup bid. So I'm sure that's what we're going to see. Obviously, we know Scotty Scheffler won last week, so let's go ahead. Now, if you're following along with me, make sure that you go back into last year bucket and go to select all. So now we include every golfer. And then with the last week bucket, go to last week 1. Jon Rahm, your top price guy, Scotty Scheffler, Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, Tony Finau. So again, I'm projecting somewhere between 1 to 3 to be inside the top 10. Pretty easy to think one of these guys is going to do it, right? Like at least one of these guys will be inside the top 10, if not up to 3 of them. And we could even have more than that, but chances are you might not be able to build a lineup with some of these guys. Because again, if Rahm, Scheffler, JT finish 1, 2, 3, at most you can put 2 of them in your lineup. You probably can't put a third one. But realistically, you could only probably play 1 of them because of the price tag being so much. Anyone who's finishing 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, depending on their price tag, might fit the optimal lineup better than putting 2 of these guys together. So keep that in mind when we go through these projections. What's the realistic possibility that 3 of these guys finish inside the top 10? You know, if this projection holds 1 to 3, do the 3 of these golfers have a better percentage of finishing inside the top 10 than the rest of them combined? Probably not, but you know, your own gut feeling probably tells you, yeah, probably. I mean, like maybe these 3 can't really beat out these 5 or 6, 7, 8, whatever. But that's a choice you're gonna have to make. Again, I like Tony, and just seeing Justin Thomas and Tony in this bucket together make me feel better thinking about selecting these 2 guys in my lineups. I think that's probably the way I want to go, honestly. But moving on to our last week 2, this is that 20 to 40 range. So whoever finished 20th to 40th place last week, those golfers are included here. Not 100% frequency rate to be inside the top 10. Our projection's 1 to 2, but remember we want a 2-point buffer, and we always want to bring the minimum down to 0 if whenever possible. You remember in the last year buckets, we couldn't do that with some of those because they were already at 0, so then we bumped up the max to 2. Well, here we're going max to bump this down to 0. So this is a 0 to 2 projection in my eyes. Let's take a look at the golfers here. Rory McIlroy at 10,500. Easy choice selection, honestly. But some fillers down here that pretty interesting. You know, we've already seen Sahith Theegala in some of these buckets that you want at least one guy from. Actually, that's not true. We've only looked at the last year buckets, and last year 3 was not one of those buckets. So never mind. My apologies. But still a name to look at nonetheless, especially if you're not going to start with Rory or even Max Homa. I don't mind adding one of these 3 golfers. If I were to go like JT into Tony Finau and then one of these guys, kind of like that. I mean, I could also make the argument of kind of going maybe JT or Finau with Rory or Max Homa. Yeah, and I'll let the buckets or the optimizer kind of do this for me. Figure out what the best duos are, and go from there. I actually might have a different strategy this week Now that I come to think of it, I'm gonna deploy something I did last year where I was really successful last year. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I don't mind a lot of these names. Probably stay away from the 6K range. Like I'm not gonna actively seek out a lot of these golfers. And I really don't have a feel on any of these low 7K golfers. So again, I'll let the optimizer do its work. Moving on. Last week threes, that 40 to 60 range. We want somewhere between 0 to 1. Remember, 2-point buffer. We're bumping this up to 0 to 2. It starts with Victor Hovland down to Tom Kim, and then it goes into the 7K range. Pretty deep. Well, I mean, a good chunk of 7K golfers, and then the 6K range. I don't really have a feel one way or the other. Can't say I really like Tom Kim at a course like this, but I don't mind Victor Hovland. Again, I'll let the optimizer do its work, see what golfers it, puts me on, stuff like that. Interesting names, nonetheless. Last week 4 is the next bucket. That 60-80 range is kind of a no-man's zone. Don't like golfers from this bucket usually. 0 to 1 is the actual projection, but again, we'll bump it up to 0 to 2. Not a huge frequency rate, not a great success rate. 0% optimal lineup frequency, so not a good bucket. And believe it or not, Cameron Young is in here, which I'm sure will be a really popular golfer. He's currently 9th in my model, so it's a hard one to swallow. I don't mind staying away from this bucket completely. You need to make a ownership, pivot or something like that. You want leverage. This is a good reason not to be on someone like Cameron Young. But of course, he could be the one guy that makes this projection, 0 to 1. He can be the one. I don't mind staying away from it, honestly. Moving on to the next bucket, golfers who missed the cut last week. Not a super high frequency rate. Not terrible. Shows up in the optimal lineup here and there. Projecting 1 to 3 to be inside the top 10. So let's take a look at the golfers in that bucket. Starts with Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay, Taylor Montgomery. So that projection being 1 to 3. I kind of hate it because I would have loved Patrick Cantlay had he been playing well. He's been garbage. Let's be real. Since the tournament champions, there's something wrong with this game. It's not been great. Colin Morikawa last week should have been kind of like a feast for him. Weather wasn't super dramatic. That course it seemed like it would have done plenty of good for him. I don't know why he played so bad. So that kind of has me hesitant with him. He did get second here last year, and I also thought he wasn't a very good course fit for this golf course last year, but he hits the ball so dang straight that any little curve that you want to put on the golf ball, he doesn't really have to worry about it. He's just that much in control. But again, that was last year. Probably more kind of analysis needs to be done on Colin Morikawa this year, but hey, by all means, if you want to play him, play him. And I'm not really going to talk about the rest of these guys. It's a ton of 7 and 6K golfers, a lot of glue. Projections 1 to 3. This bucket has how many golfers in it? 53 golfers, when on average it has 32. That is increasing the projections because of how many golfers are in here, but it is a low success rate bucket. So I would say volume alone helps this bucket out, not so much quality. So how I view that is it doesn't help people. It doesn't help me pick people like Colin Morikawa or Patrick Cantlay. They definitely have the better possibility to make this projection work out because the likelihood of them being inside the top 10 is, much better than a lot of these guys down here. But it's a sheer numbers game with all these golfers in that bucket. It's just one of those golfer versus the field type of moments. What would you rather take? Morikawa, Cantlay versus the field, or would you take the field? Personally, I'd probably take the field, if I'm being honest. I have no real faith in either of these two guys, which means one of them will finish inside the top 10. So pick your poison. And in the last bucket are golfers who didn't play last week, which we have 45 in that bucket. Usually we have 60. It's 100% 100% frequency rate, but I guarantee you that has more to do with it being a volume bucket. Remember the bucket we were just talking about? There's 53 in there, where we usually see 32. I think volume alone drives this projection up, and I could see maybe, you know, 3 or 4 golfers from this bucket being inside the top 10. This one, because the success rate's a little high, frequency rate's a little high, I mean, projection 0 to 2, and I'm very comfortable with that being 0 to 2. Although it says 1 to 2, it's 1 to 2 because the success rate's pretty decent. I don't find it that successful. I personally, even with the optimal lineup being 100% frequency rate, I think just the fact there's 15 less golfers in that bucket probably makes it worse. But let's take a look at the golfers in it. I'm getting ahead of myself. We need to look at the golfers first. Yeah, so you have Zalatoris in here, Justin Rose, Adam Scott, Tiger Woods, Thomas Dietrich. Interesting. 0 to 2, there's enough interesting names here to fill that projection. So you can grab 2 golfers pretty easy. Like Zalatoris seems like a slam dunk for a lot of people. And Justin Rose just won the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. We haven't seen Adam Scott in a long time. I think Tournament Champions might have been the last time we saw him. Or Sony Open. Maybe it was Sony Open. Yeah, I don't know. 0 to 2 is a perfect projection for this. I don't think more than 2 golfers from this bucket finish inside the top 10. And with that being said, I don't have an anchor play. Like, I'm not going to select one. I'm not going out of my way to actually grab one of these guys. So again, I'll let the optimizer do its work. That concludes the last week bucket. Let's go into the course history buckets. And we're going to start with course history 1. Those are golfers who have really good course history here, that 0 to 20 range. So their average finishing position at this golf course falls in that range, which means, you know, like top 10s, top 20s. Pretty darn good. If you're following along with me on the cheat sheet, just make sure that you select everyone from the last week bucket, as we were just talking about everyone there, and clear everyone out of the course history bucket and go to course history 1. Rahm, Schauffele, Hovland, Cam Young, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Adam Scott. We kind of already eliminated these guys from our selection, which makes it really interesting. I don't mind going with Matt Fitzpatrick. You know, this isn't a slam dunk bucket, by the way. 0 to 2 is what I'm projecting to be inside the top 10. And even like the conservative projection's not that great. We don't see a high frequency rate of being inside the optimal lineup, and we don't see a high frequency rate of being inside the top 10. So it's not really a bucket that has a lot of confidence in it, which is really interesting because Rahm is in it, Xander is in it, Victor Hovland. I don't mind kind of steering clear of this bucket. I mean, I don't know. Let's put it this way. If I'm making 100 lineups, I would say 10 to 20% of them, I'll have 2 guys in this bucket in those lineups. So it's out of 100 lineups, I might have 20 lineups, I have 2 of them in it. Then I probably put 60%, 40%. Having 1 guy in it, and then the remaining 40 having 0 in it. That's kind of how I would look at this. So 40% of my lineups won't have 1 golfer from this bucket in them. 40% will have at least 1, and then the remaining 20 will have at least 2. That's kind of how I look at it. I think that's a pretty decent thought process behind a bucket like this. Let's move on to the next one. Course history 2. We want somewhere between 1 to 3. 100% frequency rate of having a top 10 golfer in there. 100% frequency rate of producing an optimal lineup golfer. So, course history 2s. Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Max Homa, Colin Morikawa, Patrick Cantlay. This bucket is interesting. So 1 to 3, 100% frequency rate of being inside the top 10, 100% frequency rate of producing an optimal lineup golfer. Boy, does that make me really think it's either Rory or Max Homa. Just seeing all the other buckets, I'm really gravitating towards these 2 guys now. I might drop Justin Thomas as one of my top guys that I want to play and include Rory or Max Homa. Maybe I go JT Max Homa. Maybe I go Rory Tony Finau, now that I think of it. Again, I'll let the optimizer kind of decide a little bit, but oof, some great names in here, and even like decent 9K golfers, 8K, well, 2 3 8Ks, they're okay, and then some decent 7Ks. So I don't mind any of these guys. Super interesting. Okay. Going on to the next one, 1 to 3 course history threes. 100% frequency rate of top 10, but only 80% frequency rate of being in the optimal lineup. I bet you we find, what, 20 Finau in this bucket? Yep, JT and Tony Finau, which makes it interesting. It's a 1 to 3 projection. And really Finau and Thomas, even Burns, they're the only 9K and above golfers. 1 to 3. Not a super high success rate. That's kind of concerning. 100% frequency rate, though. We're seeing about the same amount of golfers that we normally do. Well, now it just makes me feel like, yeah, I think it's either JT Homa or it's Rory and Finau from the last bucket we were just looking at. Just starting that way and then building out from there. I think that's probably pretty decent. Pretty decent start. Yeah, I don't mind that. I'm going to move on, though. I'm not going to talk about the rest of those guys. Like, there's quite a bit of them at 7K and lower that we don't really need to talk about. Moving on to the next one, course history 4s. Pretty high frequency rate of being inside the top 10. Not so much with the frequency rate of being the optimal lineup. 0 to 2 is a projection. Starts with Sung Jae and then Jason Day. 0 to 2. That's interesting. I wouldn't have mind playing either of these guys, and I wouldn't have mind playing both of them, honestly, before really, diving into the buckets. But I do like golfers like Alex Smalley, the 6K range. I don't mind even going to like Troy Merritt. There are some names, like Emiliano Grillo, like that seems pretty decent. So I don't know. I don't know if I could start with one of these two guys up at the top. I don't know if I can do Sungjae, to be quite honest. Interesting. I'm going to move on. Course history 5s. 0 to 1, but of course we bumped that up to 0 to 2. Not a high frequency rate of being inside the top 10. Not a high frequency rate of being the optimal lineup. Let's take a look at the golfers here. Now, course history 5 means they basically average a missed cut at this event, which is not good. Tyrrell Hatton is in this bucket, but he probably just has one finish where he missed the cut. You don't really want to look at something like that too strong. Same kind of goes with Corey Connors. But also, they did miss the cut. So, not a high frequency rate, not a high projection to be inside the top 10. 0 to 2. Yeah, 0 to 2. Yeah, not a golfer. There's no golfers in here that I really want to anchor my lineups around. So, I'm cool with that projection. Course history 6 is golfers who've just never played this tournament ever before. We have 53 of those golfers in this bucket where we normally see 26. That's driving this projection up to 0 to 2. But the frequency rate of being inside the top 10 is pretty high, not so much in the optimal lineup. So, course history 6s starts with Tom Kim. How many do we have? 27? Is that what I have here? 53. Where's that number coming from? Let's see. Hold on. Oh, I know why. My apologies. I forgot to clean this up. This is going to change the projections a little bit, but not enough to be worried about anything. Because all these buckets take into account how many golfers are in those buckets versus other buckets. It also includes the strength of field points and stuff like that. So this does go up to 0 to 2. Actually drops course history. No, this was always 0 to 2 as well. So it doesn't really change anything. I don't see any differences. If you did, you can leave them in the comment section, but 0 to 2 course history 6 is still the same thing. Tom Kim, Taylor Montgomery. Like, this just tells me not to play Taylor Montgomery. Or if I do, then I have to really lock out a bunch of other guys. Same kind of goes with Thomas Dietrich and Kurt Kitayama. Like, I like these guys quite a bit, but the projections are not favorable for either of them, for any of them. So we'll see. I'll let the optimizer do its work. I'm okay with that. Let's move on to the fourth bucket, which is recent form. So recent form ones are guys who have really good recent form. This is anyone ranging from an average win to finishing 19th place every tournament they played. So it's between 1 to 20. Projecting 1 to 3 being inside that bucket this year, or being inside the top 10. Pretty high frequency rate of at least producing one top 10. Not so much a high frequency rate of optimal lineup guys, but we do have 11 in that bucket this year, where we see 10 on usually. So again, if you're following along with me, make sure you select everyone in the course history bucket, and then go to the recent form, clear them out, and select recent form ones. John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, Justin Thomas, Max Homa, Tony Finau, all of the names you would normally think. One guy's missing from there that's really notable is Rory McIlroy. So again, we're projecting 1 to 3. That is our projection. High success rate, high frequency rate. I've already mentioned Finau, Homa, and JT. Remember, I'm thinking starting Rory and then Tony Finau. But I've already mentioned Justin Thomas's name. I've already mentioned Max Homa's name as guys that I kind of want to build around. Makes it pretty interesting. So again, you want 1 to 3. I'm not sure who. Let's take a look at the next bucket, which is that recent form 2 bucket. This is that 20 to 40 range, and we want somewhere between 2 to 4. Now, I'm going to make a correction here. I always look at this one as a conservative method. This is, if we round up from this number, it's 3. And remember, I always want a 2-point buffer from the minimum to the maximum. So yeah, 2 to 4, which was our original projections, that makes sense. That's a 2-point 2-point buffer. But when I include the sweet spot ranks, this actually goes down to a max of 3. Now, I'm not going to hurt the max, but I am going to bring the minimum down to 1. You understand what I'm getting at? Because this is 3, I want a 2-point buffer between this number and the minimum. That brings that down to a 1, where normally it would be a 2, just if we were looking at these numbers alone right here. So really, the projection I'll be putting in the optimizer is 1 to 4. So I'm projecting 1 to 4 to be inside the top 10 here. Opens it up, makes it pretty forgiving. 100% frequency rate of being inside the top 10, 80% frequency rate of producing an optimal lineup guy. Let's see who's in the recent form 2 bucket. There we go. Rory McIlroy, of course. Rory, Xander, Sungjae, Colin. So names I've already kind of crossed out or have spoken poorly about. I do like Rory. I do like Xander. Probably not doing Sungjae. Probably not doing Colin. Don't mind Victor. Probably not doing Cam Young. Probably not doing Tom Kim. Don't mind Hideki. And I'm not going to talk about the rest of the guys, but I also don't mind like Adam Scott or Fowler. 1 to 4. So this has a pretty high chance of producing, you know, a lot of golfers being inside the top 10. So far, it's the highest projection I've seen so far, 4, for the max projection, which might help you out. Maybe it won't. Again, it's 1 to 4, and it could literally be the 4 guys at the top, and you probably can only roster 2 or 3 of them. So keep that all in mind as well. Moving to the next one, recent form 3s. We want somewhere between 1 to 3, and when I take a look at the conservative number, it's still 3. And this starts with Patrick Cantlay, Will Zalatoris, Jordan Spieth, Matt Fitzpatrick. So I'm already becoming biased when I'm thinking about my lineups. I've already decided it's Rory and Finau, or it's Rory and Homa, or it's JT and whatever. And then to fill in that 8K golfer, it just feels like it's Matt Fitzpatrick. If all things work out for me, perfect. But this is where you get in trouble. I already know I'm getting myself into trouble because I'm narrowing down what I'm looking at, and I know I need to keep it open. but I do like the idea of putting Matt Fitzpatrick with like a Rory or a JT start and adding in Homa or Finau. Like it's working out that way pretty well. But the rest of these guys aren't terrible. Remember, this is a projection of 1 to 3. So it could be any of these 7K guys. I already said I like Brendan Steele, Kurt Kitayama. I also don't mind some of these guys on here. I like Alex Smalley. So could work out, maybe it won't. We'll see. Going to the next one, course or recent form 4s, 0 to 1, but again, we bumped that up to 2, and even the conservative projections saying bump it up to 2. So 0 to 2, recent form 4s. Doesn't really start with anyone. Cam Davis is the most expensive guy in this bucket. Obviously him, Rogers, and Woodland are. I'm not really going to talk about any of these guys because the projection 0 to 2, there isn't really an anchorable golfer I want to build around here. They're just going to fill in, basically. So we can skip this one. Recent form 5s, 0 to 2 here as well. Not a high frequency rate of being inside the top 10 or the optimal lineup, so I'm sure we'll skip right past this one as well. Shane Lowry, Tommy Fleetwood, Alex Noren, Harris English. Yeah, we can skip past this one. There are like Lowry and Fleetwood. They're in my top 40. If we want to include top 50, Noren is here as well. 0 to 2. And I think it's 0 to 2 for a reason. Not really high name guys here. Just obviously a good way to think of this is don't select more than 2 golfers from this bucket. That's probably the best thing I can say to you. Best advice I can give to you. If you want to select 1 or 2, that's fine. Just don't do more than 2. And then recent form 6s, guys who haven't played in the last 6 weeks. So since the tournament champions, we only have 4 in that bucket, where we normally see 22. Is that true? That can't be true. That seems way off. It doesn't really matter because the success rate isn't high, nor is the frequency rate. I wonder, have I cleaned up the bottom of these? I must have, yeah. Really? Recent form? That can't be true. It can't be. Let me double check something really quick. So recent form totals. Yeah. Where is that pulling from? Oh, whoa. 72 in 2013. I bet you that's not true. Can't be. Yeah, it isn't. Okay, cool. So weird. I don't understand how that was like that. 2017. I'm gonna have to do some updates here. Oh, that's not true either. Weird. And 2020. These all seem like the oddest ones. 2020 is F. Yep, okay. Perfect. Been updated. How about 2018? Do we think a 17 is actually true there? That's an F. Yeah, it actually is true. Double check. Yeah. Yep. Okay, cool. Crazy. Sorry about that. Good to go over these things sometimes. All right, so 10.2, that seems more reasonable. That doesn't really change any of the projections from any of these other buckets. We're still 0 to 2, and I don't even think it's worth looking at, but sure. Tiger's in this bucket, and then a couple Europeans, and I think this guy here won. I don't remember what the award is, but usually a winner of some award usually gets to play in this tournament. I forget what it's called. It could be the Charlie Sifford Award, which I'd feel bad if it is. I just don't remember off the top of my head. So that person gets invited here, and I'm sure it's this guy, or maybe it's this one. Either way, haven't played here or haven't played a PGA Tour event in the last 6 weeks, last 7 weeks. They're in this bucket. So 0 to 2, but really 0 to 1, but really 0. Like as much as Tiger's in here, I'm not gonna waste my money playing Tiger. I'll just be a fan. Hopefully he plays well. But I can't put any investment in him, and that's fine. I'm cool with that. So those are your main 4 buckets. Just to briefly go over salaries. I'm not going to go into each golfer. We'll just talk about these briefly. I am projecting somewhere between 1 to 2 10K golfers being inside the top 10, which really means 0 to 2. Remember, we want that 2-point buffer. And it doesn't change when we include the sweet spot scores into it. 40% frequency rate of being in the optimal lineup. That's not great. But every single year, we see at least 2 inside the top 10. Play a 10K golfer with confidence. 1 to 2, I mean, 2 every single year. I mean, we see an average of 5 in each year's contests, except for this year, we see 4. I bet you this drops down to 1, but don't be surprised if we see 2 10K golfers inside the top 10. When it comes to 9Ks, 0 to 2 is also the projection, and 100% frequency rate of having at least 1 inside the top 10, 80% frequency rate of having at least one in the optimal lineup. So keep that in mind. And we did talk about a lot of 9K golfers in the optimals, as well as the sweet spot optimals or the realistic optimals. Keep that in mind. And 0 to 2 8K golfers as well, 80% frequency rate. So not 100% like the last 2 ones we talked about. But an 80% frequency rate of producing at least 1 optimal lineup golfer. So also play your 8Ks with a little confidence this week. Again, 0 to 2 for all of these, which is really interesting. Normally, 10Ks, we see it be like 1 to 3. It's usually like a really, really high success rate, and it's crazy that it's not a higher projection. Just knowing the success rate as well as the frequency, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm guessing it's because the optimal lineup isn't super great. Anyways, 1 to 3 7K golfers. 2 have been in the optimal lineup every single year. 2 have been inside the top 10 every single year, so keep that in mind. High 6Ks is a 6,500 and up. 80% frequency rate of producing at least 1 top 10 golfer. 60% in optimals, not super great, but not terrible. Not as bad as the low 6K range, so maybe stay away from the low 6K range. 0 to 1, but of course we bumped that up 0 to 2. Low success rate. Not a great frequency rate of producing top 10s, and not a great frequency rate of being the optimal lineup. So play that range with caution. Now we go into the strokes gained buckets, which if you don't know how I do this, I highly encourage you to watch the strokes gained or the bucket system video that I have. Again, there's a link to that video in the description of this video. Check it out. It'll explain about your strokes gained, but I normally just look at off the tee and putting stats. Basically, your top 3 buckets have positive off the tee, and your bottom 3 either have no strokes gain or negative off the tee. And then I sprinkle in positive and negative putting, not interchangeably, but like, forget what it's called. It rotates. So strokes gain 2 has positive putting, strokes gain 3 has negative putting, strokes gain 4 has positive putting, strokes gain 5 has negative putting, to go along with your off the tee stats. So strokes gain 1 is all stats positive, strokes gain 6 are no strokes gain stats. Now that we got that covered, let's look at our projections. We have 28 golfers that are considered a strokes gain 1 golfer in the tournament this week. That means a projection of at least 2 to 5. I mean, being inside the top 10. So I think it's easy to grab golfers from here. Maybe it's difficult with that many golfers. I don't know. But we want somewhere between 2 to 5. We see at least 1 every single year inside the top 10, but not 1 every single year in the optimal lineup. We have a 75% frequency rate of producing 1 in the optimal lineup. But again, we usually see 16 every single year. Got a few more this year, which I think is pretty interesting. I don't know if this has to do with me. I think maybe I start recording my own stats. They're not like my own stats, they're from Data Golf, but I started recording those like 2 years ago. So maybe this is the first full year that I have at least 1 full year's worth of basically my own data. It's like having 12 more is pretty ridiculous, but it is a pretty strong strength of field. And our best golfers are probably playing their best golf right now. I mean, it's been dominated by the best golfers. Rahm, Scheffler, they're all playing really well. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe not. Either way, 2 to 5. If you follow along with me, just make sure you have everything selected for all the other buckets. Clear out the strokes gained bucket and go to 1. Remember, projections are what I project to be inside the top 10 or what the bucket system projects to be inside the top 10. Not necessarily how many golfers you should pick, although that's kind of what I use in selecting golfers, is the projections. 2 to 5. You have all 4 10K golfers up here. Most of your 9K golfers, if not all of them. I think this is most. A ton of 8K golfers and some fill-ins down here. Again, I like Rory, I like JT, I like Homa, I like Finau. I don't mind Xander. I'm probably mixing in, these guys pretty interchangeably, pretty easily. I'm really starting to fall in love with Rory McIlroy. The more and more I look at this, the more and more I look at all the buckets, I'm really liking Rory. I like that build. I also do like JT. So I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to go with this. Rahm's a top price guy. He's also number 1 in my ranking so far. So we'll see what the marquee tee times show us tomorrow. I'll be really intrigued to see which guys I can pair up. 2 to 5. And then basically everything else is going to be 0 to 2 because of how high this projection is. So we can just motor through the next couple strokes gained. Nothing is at least 1. So 0 to 2 from these golfers. Don't mind Hovland. Don't mind Scott. I love Power. I should say I love Power, but I like his price tag. I want to like Taylor Montgomery here, but he's in a couple buckets that I don't care to play him in. And he did not play well at the Waste Management or the WM Phoenix Open. So probably staying away from that. And I'll let the optimizer do whatever it's going to do. Or the optimizer. I'll let it do its thing for this bucket. I have no leans one way or the other. Remember 0 to 2 for this bucket as well. Morikawa's in it. He's always in this bucket, by the way. Strokes gained 3s, positive off the tee, negative putting. He's always in this bucket. Usually we see Spieth in the strokes gained 4 bucket, but he's hitting the ball a little bit better off the tee. I think it has a lot to do with distance. 0 to 2. I don't have any confidence in any of these guys. I would love to say I do in Colin Morikawa, but I'm certainly not thinking of anchoring around him at all. Same kind of goes with Cameron Young. So do with that as you will. Again, pick your poison. Going to strokes gained 4, 0 to 2 here as well. Ricky Fowler's here. And some interesting names. Nick Taylor, 2nd place finish last week. I don't really care. 0 to 2 is a great projection for this bucket. I'm not trying to force anyone in from this one. Strokes gained 5 is the next one. Tiger is the highest priced guy in this bucket over Tom Hoge, which I think is kind of interesting, but whatever. Really not trying to focus on anyone here. Hoge is definitely the highest ranked guy, but again, I'm not forcing anyone in my lineups from here. And I think we just have one strokes gained 6 golfer, that Marcus Bird. Yeah. So probably when it comes to strokes gained stats or the strokes gained buckets, it's easy to select guys from the strokes gained 1 buckets, but outside of that, probably just ignore or just let the whatever optimizer you use select golfers from those buckets. But that concludes the bucket system, and that also concludes this video. So again, just a reminder, tomorrow I'm planning on going live early as long as the tee times come out at a decent time. I will go early with my live video. So I like to go over the marquee tee times. I like to go over the sweet spot ranks. I also like to go over the anchor buckets, kind of to build our lineups around, like which golfers to build our lineups around. And then I start building lineups for you, for me, just giving ideas out there for everyone. And if you have any questions for me, it's a great time to come in and ask me those questions. So again, normally I go live at 8, but if you want a notification sent to you, just hit the little bell icon that's down below on the YouTube interface. That allows you to know when I go live or when I post new videos. Be subscribed and just check YouTube here and there, because I will put kind of like I'll put a broadcast out there, like a placeholder, and you'll get notified when I do that, when I'm going to go live. So that's available to you. And especially if you're paying attention to YouTube, I'll try to get it out there by 3 p.m. Central Standard Time when I'll actually go live. So I'll give you like a 2 to 3 hour heads up. So look for that. Keep an eye out for that. Just a reminder, giveaways, I like to reward those that participate on the channel. And if you want participation points, all you got to do is be subscribed to this channel and comment down below on any of my videos, and you will get quote unquote participation points. You get a free entry per video you comment on. So that just increases your chances of winning. Monthly giveaway that is ran at the end of the month, but this also includes the weekly giveaway. So you can replace that $50 with 5 and replace monthly with weekly, and the same thing applies. So except for the whole goal, we don't necessarily need to reach a goal, or we don't need to reach a goal for me to run the weekly giveaway, but for the monthly giveaway, $50, we need to get to 500 subscribers. So we're 15 away. We're inching up there. We're getting closer. If you're not yet subscribed, highly encourage you to do so, and very appreciative and thankful that you do, if you do. And of course, that will ensure that if you participate on this channel, you'll get free entries to the giveaways that I run. So those are available. Rebate for prize picks. There's a link in the description below that'll get you to the sign up page. Sign up using that promo code SweetSpot. Put $20 in your account. I'm gonna give you $20 back. Easy as that. Plus, prize picks are gonna match your deposit up to $100. So 20 turns into 40, 100 turns into 200. Either way, you're still getting $20 back from me. Simple as that. And again, I had a cheat sheet available for you. Hopefully you saw that. If not, link in the description below, and I'll have the optimizer ready for tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, I will send it to you. But that is all that I have. So thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye.